I'm a field Negro. If I can't live in the house as a human being, I'm praying for a wind to come along. If the master won't treat me right and he's sick, I'll tell the doctor to go in the other direction. But if all of us are going to live as human beings, as brothers, then I'm for a society of human beings that can practice brotherhood.
Woke up this morning with my mind gonna stay on freedom. Oh, woke up this morning with my mind gonna stay on freedom.
We woke up this morning with our mind stayed on freedom. Welcome to the Stayed on Freedom podcast, published by the Alabama African American Civil Rights Heritage Sites Consortium. We have a very special episode today. We are here in Selma, Alabama at Brown Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church. We are in the heart of the Black Belt in Selma, Alabama, in the cradle of the Civil Rights Movement, for a very special set of conversations in a very special season. This year, 2025, is the 60-year anniversary, what came to be known to all the world as Bloody Sunday. And if you know the history and if you know the background, you know that there is a deep and rich legacy of commitment, of struggle, of social justice, of organizing around voting rights and for freedom, justice, and self-determination for our communities that was rooted not only right here in Selma, Alabama, but was also rooted here at Brown Chapel AME Church. This was one of the locations of voting rights mobilization for years, but this was also the launching point for that movement that began on March the 7th, 1965, when a group of community leaders, a group of activists, a group of organizers, a group of freedom fighters planned to march across Edmund Pettus Bridge on their way to Montgomery, Alabama. And we are so blessed because today we are here with Joyce O'Neal. Joyce O'Neal, you would never know it to look at her, but she was a foot soldier back then, 16 years old in 1965. She was a part of that movement. She was a part of those efforts. Her family was a part of that. And we are going to have the opportunity to talk some about her experiences during that time. But we're also going to talk about a very special moment that occurred on February 4th, 1965. And as much as people may know about the story of Bloody Sunday and the Civil Rights Movement, they may not know that 60 years ago also, on February 4th, 1965, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, came to Selma, Alabama. Came on February 4th, 1965 at the invitation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who he had connected with in Africa, came through Tuskegee University, Tuskegee Institute, but then at the urging of activists and organizers and young people came to talk to young people here at Brown Chapel AME Church in a mass meeting in Selma, Alabama. Welcome, Ms. Joyce O'Neal, to the Stayed on Freedom podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Sure, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Tell us about what you remember. What do you remember about that time?
I remember what I would call a rapt audience of young people paying very close attention when Malcolm X spoke here. I remember where I was seated. If you're in the pulpit and facing the congregation, I was seated on the left-hand side because the church has 3 sections, 2 aisles and 3 sections. I remember some of his words, and I remember because we knew who Malcolm X was. We had a group of teachers at R.B. Hudson High School, the segregated R.B. Hudson High School, who were intent on us learning as much as we could about everything that was going on in the world. So we knew key figures in these United States, especially key African American figures. and who they were and what they were doing. So we were very excited, very happy to be in the audience when Malcolm X spoke.
Were there a lot of people there? Was it full house?
The 3 sections were full of young people.
And when you say young people, what was the age range of the?
It could have been anywhere from 11 to 19.
Wow. Okay. Now, at that time, excuse me for interrupting, Dr. King was in jail, right? He was here in Selma, and he was in jail because he was connected to the voting rights movement and had been arrested at the time. So he wasn't at the.
He wasn't at the church.
At the church.
No, he was not. So I don't remember who escorted Malcolm X in. In my mind right now, I just see this imposing figure in the pulpit. And I remember the eyeglasses. And I remember his voice.
Yes.
And what he said to us. And I remember primarily his talk about the Field Negro and the House Negro.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Tell us about that, because even though later people came to know Malcolm X through his autobiography, the autobiography of Malcolm X that was written along with Alex Haley, or as told to Alex Haley, as it says on the cover. At that point, this had not been published. At that point, many people didn't know about some of the messages that Malcolm X was sharing and speaking all over the country. But here, he also spoke to the young people about the House Negro and the Field Negro. Can you tell us about what that was and what that was all about?
Now, you know, that was 60 years ago, so I can't remember all of the exact words. But I do remember it's explaining the difference.
Yes.
And what effect it had on enslaved people.
Yes.
And what it meant for enslaved people. And I remember that as a 16-year-old, it was resonating in my mind. Which one am I?
What'd you come up with?
I wanted to be the Field Negro.
Right.
I do remember that.
Yes. But I bet you also had in your mind, well, I probably know some House Negroes, and I probably know some Field Negroes as well, right?
I have to say this, and I'll sit down. Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were 2 kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the Field Negro.
That stayed with me from then to now. That what does my life mean as a black person in America, even today? Am I still a Field Negro?
Right.
And I would say I am.
Because Malcolm X would have said he said he's a Field Negro. Because when he described the House Negro, he said those were those who loved the master more than the master loved themselves. In the tradition, they lived in the house or in the basement or in the attic. They ate of the master's food, at least what he threw away. But they were more committed to the maintenance of the plantation and of the house of the master than the master was. If he was sick, they say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick? We got a good house here." But then he said that Field Negro, which he said that he was, and you were reflecting upon, was the one who, if someone said, "Let's get out of here, let's leave."
Yes, and that's what I was just thinking about. One of the things he said was, if the plantation house caught on fire,
what would he pray for?
then the house Negro would pray for the master to survive, and that he would do whatever he could to get the master out of the house, even if it meant he stayed behind so long that he got caught in the fire.
Right. And the Field Negro might pray for a wind to come and cause the fire to spread. So that was 60 years ago.
60 years ago.
You still remember.
I still remember. That's something I will never forget.
And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" He was as sick as the master. When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes. They ate the worst food. And they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes.
I feel so blessed to have been able to hear that.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but sometimes when you look back on all that went on and all that we experienced, it causes a lot of emotions.
Yes.
And right now I'm having a moment. When I think about what I was able to experience and the people I had an opportunity to hear and interact with, how much it enriched my life. And how much it helped me. Even after hearing him, we were still fighting for the right to vote. And we were still experiencing all of that Jim Crow mess. But it's helped me to navigate it better until things changed.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but that's...
No apologies. We need to have tears with you, tears of thanksgiving and joy that you made that commitment, that you had those experiences, that you've made it through and to, and that you're still testifying, and that you're still working here at Brown Chapel AME and in this community. You are still dedicated. So I think Malcolm will be proud of you. He would say that you are still in the field, because that's clear. Your work demonstrates that. Your work with community, your work with people that has gone back decades and decades and decades.
But it also was an example that all people don't think alike. When you think about Dr. King and Malcolm X, and we knew that there was some difference, but when he spoke, we knew that he had some of the same goals.
Right.
And that he wanted the best for African Americans. Right. And as students, we knew that. Yes. After listening to him. We could see the passion. Well, I could see the passion when he spoke. And it said to me that there are people on all sides that are in this fight.
Yes.
People from all segments of African American life or black life that are in this fight.
Yes.
And we need to take something from all of them.
Yes.
In order to push forward and in order to be successful.
Yes. Well, we have a double blessing for this episode of the State on Freedom podcast, because 60 years later, not only are we blessed to have the opportunity to speak with you, we're also going to have the opportunity to talk with one of his daughters, who was only 2 years old on February 4th, 1965, and 60 years later is coming to join with us, and we have a double blessing. So family, we have begun with our beloved sister Joyce O'Neill, who was 16 years old on February 4th, 1965, when El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, came and spoke to the young people. But we're also going to hear today from his daughter, and we're going to have the opportunity to introduce you all for the first time and to also hear from her about how she looks forward and how she is seeking to speak to young people today who still need to know of the strength, of the dignity, of the message, and of the shared message of freedom and justice and self-determination of both Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as well as Malcolm X.
But if all of us are going to live as human beings, as brothers, then I'm for a society of human beings that can practice brotherhood. So before I sit down, I want to thank you for listening to me. I hope I haven't put anybody on the spot. I'm not intending to try and stir you up and make you do something that you wouldn't have done anyway. I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture.
As I said before, we have a double blessing. Not only did we have the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with Ms. Joyce O'Neill, who is a leader at Brown Chapel AME Church here in Selma, Alabama, was a foot soldier, 16 years old on February 4th, 1965, in Brown Chapel at the mobilization where Selma received one of our great champions, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, who came at the invitation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and came to speak to young people here in Selma. But the double blessing is that here in this day, in this Black History Month, in this season of remembrance, in this season when we are remembering to remember Bloody Sunday from March 7th, 1965, when we are remembering to remember tragedy of February 21st, 1965, with the loss of El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, the assassination of Malcolm X, as we remember all of the turbulent times and the things that led up to that, we are here and blessed to have Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz, one of Malcolm X's daughters, to be here with us and to share this sacred moment, this sacred space, and this time. And I just want to thank you, because it is an honor and a privilege and a blessing that you have accepted the invitation of the Consortium to be here with us, to be amongst your people here who are also committed to freedom, those who were inspired by both your father as well as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many other leaders. But to have you here because we're the next generation, and we have some responsibilities and some challenges and some perspectives that are rooted in the very present moment as well. But first, thank you, Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz, for being here with us at Brown Chapel AME Church in Selma, Alabama.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here, especially to sit next to you.
And I want to go to that quickly, but before we came here, we were able to spend all day yesterday. We had a very early morning, and we went throughout the day visiting with our sacred heritage sites in Birmingham, Alabama. We had the opportunity to visit 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, where on September 15th, 1963, 4 little girls were tragically ripped away from this life with the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church. There were 2 little boys who were also killed later that evening. We started there. We went through a place of resistance. We went to Kelly Ingram Park, where we learned and talked about the Children's Crusade and how children earlier that spring had mobilized. And then we moved throughout the city, and we went to historic Bethel Baptist Church and learned of the legacy of Fred Shuttlesworth. We went to Old Sardis Baptist Church, Dynamite Hill, Angela Davis's home. We saw a lot. Dr. Shabazz, any reflections? I mean, we inundated you yesterday. Any reflections on what we saw yesterday, some of the people you talked with, because we didn't just see buildings, you had a chance to talk with people. Any reflections from yesterday?
You know, I just think it's so wonderful that you're able to preserve so much history. And I hope that you're able to also educate the next generation of young people so that they understand, you know, all of these treasures that they have here.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, the sense of community that's urgently needed. Yeah, you know, while there is a lot of trauma, there's so much joy.
Yes.
And, you know, I like to stay in that joyous space. You know, one of the things that my mother gave to us was, you know, she often said, for as long as I can remember, find the good and praise it. So that we are learning.
Find the good and praise it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that we're learning and being encouraged and inspired, you know, by the different kinds of experiences that we have. So that we become even better individuals.
Yes.
And if I can add, a lot of times when I'm doing tours, I get the question, why aren't you bitter? After all that happened, why aren't you bitter? And my answer is, bitterness eats me up inside. The person that I'm bitter towards is going on with their life.
That's right.
While I'm being eaten up like worms eating your body from the inside. So bitterness serves no purpose. And bitterness also keeps you from moving forward and keeps you from staying in the fight.
Yes.
I feel I have to stay in the fight, so I don't have time for bitterness. It has to be compassion. And who knows, maybe my compassion will change the hearts and minds of those that I'm bitter towards.
And what might be surprising to many people is when Malcolm X came here on February 4th, he inspired you to move forward. He inspired you to see that there was unity in so many ways between the positions that you had been hearing from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the commitment that he expressed, demonstrated. Can you share some just about, and we're going to go into the sanctuary later, but to share with Dr. Shabazz some of what you shared with me earlier in terms of the impact that message had on you on February 4th, 1965.
I was explaining earlier that seeing your father as a 16-year-old and in my seasoned years now, when I look back on it, I count it such a blessing that I was able to hear words from his mouth and watch him as he talked to us. And I remember one thing that stays with me is his explanation of the difference between the Field Negro and the House Negro. And as I said earlier, I sat there thinking, which one am I? And I decided I was a Field Negro, and I still am. Because Field Negroes get things done. They're doing the hard work. And I think I get things done. Now, I don't dress like the Field Negro any longer. But it matters that it's in my mind that that's the kind of African American I am. I'm still in the field. Your father put that in my mind, in my head, and I knew that going forward, I had to remain a Field Negro in order to get things done. I remember him encouraging us to stay in the fight, that what we were doing was the right thing to do. And he encouraged us and wished us well on this journey. Young people, those sitting in that sanctuary, some of them had been in jail longer than a week. They were transported to jails in other counties as far as 60 miles away because all the jails in Selma were full. We have a church member who was in jail for a week, and she's about 3 years younger than me, but she was out there marching.
So if you were 16, she was 13 in jail for a week?
There was some, yeah. And unfortunately, I didn't go to jail.
You said unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because it was a badge of honor. That's one thing from that time that I really hate. My sister went to jail, and then I saw the effects of that, what that was on her. When she was released, she came home and fell on the floor and cried for 2 weeks because of the treatment. And she could not understand, and she was 17, but she could not understand how humans could be so inhumane towards other humans just because of the color of their skin. Because of that, she won't do what I'm doing now. I do the tours, I talk to groups to tell the story of 1965 in Selma, and particularly at Brown Chapel. And she doesn't like to recall. She's a brilliant person. She heard Malcolm X too. And when I told her I was coming for this, she said, how awesome. She is so proud that I get to meet you, and I am too. I had the utmost respect for your father. I had the utmost respect, not just because he spoke to us, but as I followed along to see what he was doing. And then when he was assassinated, it touched me deeply. It hurt. It hurt deeply, especially since I had just seen him talk to us. It had just been, 2 weeks that I sat in that sanctuary and listened to him talk to us about what we were doing and how we should continue. And it made me resolve that I would not give up, that I would never give up. And here I am, 76 years old, and I haven't given up. I'm still trying to do whatever I can to make a difference. Yes, I get tired, but I can't stay tired.
That's right.
And it's because of your father that I can't give up.
That's really something, like I share, I'm also a college professor, and I share with my students all the time that, they march, they protest, they demonstrated. And in the 50s, it was a different kind of marching, demonstrating, and protesting. And, all you want is basic respect as a human being, quality education, quality housing, quality health care, that my father came along and said, we demand our respect as your brother. We demand our respect as ordained by God, that there wasn't an asking for these things. It is not yours to give me. And I think as long as, we understand our own sense of humanity, and I think that's what my father gave us, right? Because if we've been so conditioned to think that whatever we get, whatever we want, we have to ask for permission to have these things. And so I'm grateful, and I'm happy to hear how my father mentored you in that short moment that you met him in your life. That you felt his genuine sense of compassion, right? And authority. Right? You felt secure with his care and concern and intelligence and all of that other stuff. I'm happy to hear that.
And I might add, my mother was a fan of your father's. I mean, she was a strict fan. And she would talk to us often about sometimes you need to hear other people, and you need to hear their philosophies, and you need to, of course, choose. She said, but I choose Malcolm X. And I can see your father as I'm sitting here now. When I reflect back, I can see him standing in the pulpit. And I can see how, as a 16-year-old sitting in that sanctuary, how I thought what an imposing figure he was. But I could see the strength in this black man. I could see that he was somebody I needed to pay close attention to and listen. And I told Reverend Okada earlier that all of the students that day were at rapt attention. They weren't moving. Everybody was just quiet and listening. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. And I'll never be more grateful for having the experience. Never.
Well, it was I just need to breathe a minute just to hear your testimony and to see this connection and to be able to bring you two together in this time. It's just really a God moment, as my mother would say. And on that day, Malcolm X was in the pulpit, but Coretta Scott King also spoke. And the thing that people don't know well enough if they just read the autobiography or go by the popular narrative is to know the connection not only between the freedom-loving ideas of both the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, but also about the relationships that formed between the Shabazz family and the King family. Dr. Shabazz, can you tell us some about the connection between your father and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but then also that connection between families that continued forward for many years beyond that?
Yeah, I think, there was this sense of brotherhood between my father and Dr. King. They met in their 20s, or they knew of one another while they were still very young. In their 20s, and they were both assassinated at 39. So that my mother and who we called Aunt Coretta were like sister friends, like best friends. I mean, they gave one another support. Whenever my mother found herself at a very challenging time, Aunt Coretta was there, and vice versa. And that our families have been close. I think there's just always this sense of divisiveness. Anything that prevents us from coming together. Malcolm was a Muslim. Malcolm was in the North. Dr. King was in the South. Malcolm was one thing, I'm not even going to use the word, and Dr. King was about nonviolence, when they're all just inaccurate, right? And, when we think about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, we're not encouraged to choose one over the other, right? It's usually, look at the contributions that these forefathers made to our country. Dr. King was about civil rights, and Malcolm X was about human rights, and we need both.
Right.
That's right. All human beings need civil rights too. And the civil rights, human rights connection is long and deep. And in this present moment, descendants of enslaved African people, if we didn't come over on the same boat, we're in the same boat now. And what we have to confront today in 2025 is real. We don't have time for divisiveness, for lack of unity, because our young people need us today. Our young people, and we need them today. We always say we're doing something for them. We actually need our young people as much, if not more, than they need us. What are you all seeing today when you look around George Washington Carver housing projects today in Selma, when we look around in New York City or with your college students that you teach? What is the lesson and what is the message or lessons, a message, not to say that there's a singular one, but is there something that we can take from this moment as we look forward?
I think we've got to stop. We've got to keep telling the stories, but we've got to not just tell the stories for the sake of history.
Yes.
We've got to tell the stories so our young people will understand where they came from and what happened to get them to the place where they are now. They don't understand what happened, and it's been our fault because we didn't tell the stories.
That's right.
We didn't teach them what they need to know about how the right to vote came about. What happened after the young girls and the young people in Birmingham were killed. Now, we talk about it as history, but we don't tell our children what it means to them and for them. So we've got to stop getting on soapboxes, saying, look at me, I was a foot soldier. No, that wasn't all it was. And that shouldn't be all it is today. I need to let you know what that meant and what happened. How many people your age were in jail so you could live this life you're living now. We've got to teach them.
That's right.
And we've got to be more intentional. And it's even more important now, and we have the best opportunity now because they're stopping it in the public schools.
That's right.
We've got to pull it back in. When I was a child, right here in this room, when we had youth meetings, it wasn't just about the Bible. It wasn't just about the catechism. It was about black people and what we stood for, what our forefathers endured when they were enslaved. Not just in the classroom, we learned it here. We've got to pull it back into our black organizations so we can teach the authentic history of our people and what it meant to live back then. I'm a hush.
No, absolutely.
And Dr. Shabazz, I know she's speaking your language.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, what was it, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who said back in the 1950s, the biggest race is to see who will control the minds of young people.
Yeah.
And so it means that our young people have to recognize the power that they possess, but they're not going to know it unless we have that conversation with them and that we take responsibility for bringing them in and teaching them and nurturing them and making sure they know about this power that they possess. You know, the devaluing of, which I really don't want to talk about so much right now, but I'm sure we will, but the devaluing of our lives, when you see it, you know, so often, then eventually it's the same thing that you do. So we just have to make sure they recognize the power that they possess as young people. And I'm sure that that is what my father gave you and those young people who were sitting in that chapel back in 1965.
He did give us power and talked to us about how powerful we could be and how powerful we were at that time. Yes.
Well, thank you for helping us to remember Dr. Carter G. Woodson. We are in the month of February. What is it, almost 100 years? It was founded in 1926, so we're in the 99th year of when Negro History Week was first celebrated. And this is a season for us to look back in order to look forward. And Steve Biko, and we can close and transition, who was a leader of the student movement in South Africa, is once quoted as having said, "The most powerful weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." And if we have to save our minds, and younger, older, House Negro, Field Negro, and everybody in between, because we need each other and we need to come together in this very present moment. So thank you both. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your time, sharing this space with us. And we are going to go into the sanctuary. And I want to say this as we close. We want to make a special appeal to everyone who is listening to this podcast to sow in to support Brown Chapel AME Church in Selma, Alabama. This is a sacred place that must be preserved and protected, and it is our responsibility. We have been working hard for years now to restore the sanctuary so we can move back in and worship in that place where Malcolm X came on February 4th, 1965. And so I just want to encourage you, and we will provide information connected on YouTube and Spotify and in the description of this podcast for you to give support to Brown Chapel AME Church. We have not been able to be back in our sanctuary like we were back in 1965 since before COVID. And it is a long process. It is an expensive process, but it's all our responsibility. Not just, Miss Joyce has already paid everything she ever needs to pay. Everything, plus.
But I'm still paying.
And you're still paying. So we need to come up, ante up in terms of our own responsibility. So I want to make that appeal on behalf of the sisters and brothers who I love at Brown Chapel AME and a member of the consortium as we move forward.
And in their failure to protect our human rights, they are violating the United Nations Charter, and they are not qualified to continue to sit in that international body and talk about what human rights should be done in other countries on this earth.